One of Steven Spielberg's most highly regarded films is Saving Private Ryan, a movie that basically shaped almost every dramatization of World War II since then. Really, if you look at most media that depicts the fighting of that war since 1998, they owe some debt to this film. The concept for Saving Private Ryan originated with screenwriter Robert Rodat, who thought about the impact that brothers dying in a war could have on their parents. He wrote a script which eventually caught the attention of Tom Hanks, who then saw it as a potential project for Steven Spielberg. When they signed on, the movie was then set in motion. Spielberg wanted to take the World War II film in a new direction by showing the terror and uncertainty faced by the soldiers. A frequent theme of the film is the soldiers questioning the point of their mission to find Ryan and tell him he would be going back home. As Edward Burns' character asks at one point, "Where's the sense of risking the lives of the 8 of us to save one guy?" Even the captain, John Miller, starts to wonder the point of the mission, and his main motivation for doing this is his hope that once it's complete, he will finally get to go home. Most of these soldiers are depicted as tired and just about ready for Germany to surrender and for them to all return back to America. But this one mission is symbolic of what exactly the duty of a soldier is. While they may be ordered to kill enemies, allow them in there to save lives and make sure the heartbreak from this war will eventually end. One of the strong points of the movie is that the soldiers don't blend into each other. They are each given identifiable personalities and are easy to tell apart. Not just through the performances of the actors, but also the way they assess each situation they end up in and their own specific role in this troupe. They each play important roles in their journey through France to find Ryan and in the various battles they find themselves in. They react in ways that are specific to their characters rather than as a monolith. So when one of them dies in action, we can see the impact this has on the men. Spielberg chose to film the sequences in almost chronological order so that the actors could feel a similar sense of loss of not seeing their co-star on set again. He even had Matt Damon, who plays Private Ryan, trained separately from them to further influence their performances and the way their characters feel about him. In the lead role of Captain Miller, Tom Hanks gives an excellent performance showing the layers of his character. It's evident he's been in this war for a while and is unsure what life will be like for him afterwards. An element of his character comes from the other soldiers trying to guess what his occupation was back home. On repeat viewings, after you find out what it is, you can spot how the dialogue and Hanks' performance drop hints with the way he talks to the men. It also highlights how so many of the soldiers who fought in World War II were not military men. These were ordinary people with familiar day jobs who were drafted and sent to fight and risk their lives to make sure the threat of fascism did not spread any further. Through their conversations, we see how much they long for that time in their lives and are frustrated having to travel to find one person privileged to get that opportunity they long desire just to make his mother happy. With Jeremy Davies' rookie recruit Timothy, we also see how someone's experiences during this mission and the things he witnesses changes his stance on the war and those they are fighting against. Additionally, the movie shows how many making these kinds of decisions were usually in offices rather than out on the battlefield. Speaking of which, the battles in Saving Private Ryan are what has received the most attention. The opening D-Day sequence in Omaha Beach has become legendary, with Spielberg not interested in sugarcoating it one bit. It is incredibly bloody and violent and chaotic as bullets are flying and soldiers are trying to avoid being hit by them while getting closer to the Germans. The body count keeps piling up, but none of it is meant to be a big rah-rah moment. It's meant to show how dirty and grimy that day was. One part that's always stuck out at me is when a soldier gets hit with a bullet on his helmet, he takes the helmet off, and another bullet immediately shoots and kills him. It shows how every little decision can mean the difference between them surviving the next day or lying there dead in the sand. Working with his cinematographer Janusz Kaminski, Spielberg wanted the film to appear documentary-like so the audience could feel a similar sensation of being on that beach. It's an exceptional sequence that immediately pulls you in and does not flinch at showing the carnage that occurred on that day. There are other terrific battle sequences in the movie, including one on a rainy day and the final one set in a fictional French village. Even though there's a lot happening in these battle sequences, one never feels lost, and you know what each character is in a given moment and what they're doing. Each of these battle scenes also contribute to their development rather than being merely there for the sake of action. The casting is also quite remarkable, with a few established actors and others who have become more widely known. You have Tom Hanks, of course, but then Ted Danson and Dennis Farina also show up in small roles. But I don't feel taken out when I see them, as they do fit naturally. Then you have the actors who were near the start of their careers or were on their way to getting their big breakout role. Vin Diesel, Barry Pepper, Giovanni Ribisi, and Adam Goldberg are part of Miller's unit, while we also get appearances from Nathan Fillion, Paul Giamatti, and Bryan Cranston in bit roles. Spielberg is often cast an actor because he admired earlier work they've done, even if it's only a small part, and he and casting director Denise Chaiman really showed a skill for filling out the ensemble with talented actors here. For Private Ryan, Spielberg wanted someone unknown and cast Matt Damon based on Robin Williams' recommendation. But then, while the movie was in post-production, Good Will Hunting opened and he became a lot more recognized. As a result, his face and name ended up on the poster. Another important element comes from the score by John Williams. Even though the film runs almost 3 hours long, only about a third of the movie has music. This was a choice made by Spielberg and Williams, who wanted it used only when necessary, and the score is largely absent during the battle sequences. Instead, sound designers Gary Rydstrom and Richard Himes and their creation of loud explosions and bullets flying provide the soundtrack for those scenes. What we do get of Williams' music is beautifully composed and fit the tone of the film. One criticism that has been given towards Saving Private Ryan is its focus on American troops. After all, several countries sent soldiers to fight against Germany on D-Day, but the movie primarily just shows the Americans. However, Omaha Beach is massive, and it's clear Spielberg wanted us to focus on the characters we'll be following for the rest of the runtime, along with showing the significant percentage of American soldiers who died during that battle. We even see how the men who died under Miller's command have impacted him in a major way. Steven Spielberg and Robert Rodat wanted to tell a story about American soldiers and their role in World War II, so that's what the movie focuses on. If this was a British film, it would have emphasized the British. If this was a French film, then French soldiers would have been the focus. Saving Private Ryan is an American film by an American director about American soldiers. In addition to the research Rodat conducted, Spielberg was also heavily influenced by the stories told by his father and his veteran friends about their time in the war. Now, one criticism I do have about the film are the bookend sequences. I understand the point of them is to show Ryan reflecting on the words Miller said to him and wondering whether it was worth it to risk his own life and his fellow soldiers just for his sake. I get why Spielberg felt these were necessary, but I personally don't think they were needed and could have been cut. This is a minor quibble though, and I don't think they harm the movie that much. Saving Private Ryan would win Steven Spielberg another Best Director Oscar, along with 4 other Oscars honoring the sound work, cinematography, and editing. However, it lost Best Picture to Shakespeare in Love, which many have decried as a terrible decision on the part of Academy voters. Personally, I find a lot of the reaction to this seems to stem from people being upset that a serious, masculine war movie lost to a lighthearted romantic comedy. Saving Private Ryan is a fantastic film, and I think Shakespeare in Love is a wonderful film that succeeds on its own specific goals too. But if I was an Academy voter, the movie I would have voted for would have been Life is Beautiful. Regardless of the outcome of the Oscars, Saving Private Ryan has certainly earned its place as one of the best war films, examining the role of soldiers in combat and how they try to fulfill the mission handed down to them by their superiors. While like other war films, War is Hell is the theme of the movie, there's a bit more complexity there. It was another remarkable achievement from Spielberg, an example of how he so often uses his skills as a filmmaker to draw us into the characters and the journey they go on. See you next time.